everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Principle Podcast, Astrology for Authentic Living. My name is Mel with Energetic Principles.
And I'm Shawna with Neo Feminine Astrology.
And in this episode, we will be discussing the astrology for the week of January 22nd, 2018, and what we have titled, Speak Your Truth. The purpose of this podcast is to give inspiration and guidance for this week with real-life examples of what to expect.
The three major aspects that we'll talk about today are Mercury conjunct Pluto in Capricorn and the first quarter moon in Taurus, which we've titled Give It to Me Straight. We'll also talk about Mercury sextile Jupiter, which is about finding answers. And lastly, we'll talk about Mercury square Uranus, which we've called a new dawn. So some of these aspects will influence you more than others based on what's literally happening in your life right now and your personal astrological makeup. So notice what resonates with you most and always use your intuition and logic to decide what's best for you.
Yes, because you know you best. So yeah, Shawna, let's kick off this week's episode with a quick rundown of the moon's path through the zodiac and some other minor aspects for all you astro geeks out there. Well, we start off the week with our lunar lady in her waxing phase and in the action-oriented sign of Aries. She then makes her way into the stable sign of Taurus on Wednesday, where we'll have our first quarter moon, which of course we're going to discuss in much more detail later in the episode. She then continues on into communicative Gemini on Friday, where she'll remain much of the weekend before she squeaks into sensitive Cancer on Sunday. Also of note, we have Mars, who's going to be moving into Sagittarius on Friday, January 26th at 4:57 a.m. Pacific time, which is 12:57 p.m. Universal time and 10:57 p.m. Aussie Eastern time. So Shawna, share with us who we're featuring for this week's quotes.
Yeah, so this episode features quotes and inspiration from Oprah. I'm really excited about this episode because we're actually featuring quotes from her recent speech. And she's such a great symbol for this week in particular because it's such a Mercury-focused week. And that speech that she gave was about speaking truth and about uncovering the truth. And plus, she's an Aquarius. So very appropriate symbol for this week. Excited to share some of her beautiful words with you.
Yes, she does seem a very appropriate feature this week. And the fact that speech is making waves, in true Aquarian style, Once again, I think we were talking about this last week with Aquarius being somewhat of a catalyst. So isn't that funny how she speaks her truth? Because I think she's a Sag rising or she's a Sag moon, one of the two. And there it is out there for everyone to behold.
Yeah, definitely. So we're excited to jump into these transits. One last note before we do, want to give a shout out to all of our patrons. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for following and for your patronage. We definitely appreciate it very much.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not already a patron, to become a patron, you can show your appreciation for this podcast and also get our really cool show notes every single week with all of the details of each episode, including the dates of the aspects that we talk about, the tarot cards that Mel pulls, the quotes that I select, reflection questions, and the weekly action item. So it's a really nice guide to follow along, especially if you can't listen all in one chunk. It's a nice little cheat sheet. And then, of course, when you sign up to become a patron, you also get 2 free gifts from us. You get our Astro Basics cheat sheet, which has a quick little rundown of all of the signs and the planets and the aspects and what they each mean, and a 2018 forecast cheat sheet as well with all of the major transits for the year ahead.
Yes, and that can definitely come in handy, not only when you're listening to the podcast, but just in general. See what it helps you set up your year to see those kind of key points. And so, yeah, they're pretty useful, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely helpful to plan the year ahead, especially because we have Mars retrograde, Venus retrograde. We have some pretty major stuff happening this year. So
yes, we do.
Plan.
Yeah, true that.
True that. Yep. So to find out more about becoming a patron, you can go to feminineprinciplepodcast.podbean.com. And you can also just connect with us on Facebook or Instagram under Feminine Principle Podcast.
Yes, that's where we are. And if you do want to take a look at those show notes, we always have a sample set for you to look at so you can see, what's that look like? What am I getting here? So yeah. So speaking of Facebook, right, Shawna, we got something, a new Facebook Live happening.
Yeah. So mark your calendars for our next full moon Facebook Live event so that you can chat with us about the vibe of the full moon. And this one is extra special because it's also a lunar eclipse. So the date for this, for our event, the Facebook Live is Tuesday, January 30th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And so that's 6 p.m. Universal Time, and then Australian Eastern Time, it's actually Wednesday the 31st at 4 a.m. I know that's really early.
Yes.
But that's when we'll be going live, so mark your calendar so that you can join us.
Yes, we'd love to see you there. And it's always such a fun time when we do these events, I really enjoy it. It's thrilling to go live when people, it's kind of puts you on the spot, and, it's just fun to engage with everybody that shows up. So we definitely hope to see you there.
Yeah, definitely.
So that being said, shall we kick into this very mercurial week that we're going to be having?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So Mercury is definitely speaking this week, which we are going to be speaking about here. So let's start with our first segment where we're going to be discussing Mercury, who's going to be conjuncting Pluto in Capricorn, and also our first quarter moon in Taurus, and what we are titling, Give It To Me Straight. So some exacts on that. We're going to have Mercury conjunct Pluto on Wednesday, January 24th at 12:47 p.m. Pacific time, which is 8:47 p.m. Universal time. And then Thursday, the 25th at 6:47 a.m. Aussie Eastern time. And that conjunction is going to happen at 19 degrees Capricorn. Then we're going to have that first quarter moon same day on Wednesday, January 24th at 2:20 p.m. Pacific time, which is 10:20 p.m. Universal time. And then the 25th, which is Thursday at 8:20 a.m. Aussie Eastern time. And that first quarter moon is going to happen at 4 degrees Taurus. So Shawna, kick us in with your first quote.
So this again is from Oprah's speech at the Golden Globes. What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. And I liked this. I felt this was so appropriate for Mercury conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, and then on top of that, that first quarter moon in Taurus, because Mercury is about communication. It's about the exchange of ideas and sharing something, sharing an intellectual idea or information with someone else. And when our capacity to communicate comes into contact with Pluto, Pluto is about, it's about upheaval of things that are hidden. It's about getting to the root of something that has been unconscious or that has been secret in some way. And this is in the sign of Capricorn. So it's very practical. Like we've titled it, Give It To Me Straight. Like give me the real, give me the truth. And on top of that, we have the first quarter moon, which is about confronting things. And so I think at this point in time, earlier in the week, we may be feeling this. We may be feeling a call to speak the truth or to find the truth, even if that's just being truthful to ourselves.
Yes, because this is a conjunction. So chances are we might be giving it to ourselves straight this week in a way. And that's okay. We have to get on board with ourselves first in order to make waves in our life. And Shawna, I find this very appropriate, especially that we're featuring Oprah this week, because when she made that speech, it was at the time when the Sun and Venus was conjuncting Pluto. Mm-hmm. So here we are talking about Mercury conjuncting Pluto. We're actually speaking about her speech and really thinking about those types of things more. So it seems very appropriate. And who knows, something about that speech or just the energy that it brings up could actually come up at this time again in the news, and people are going to be talking about it and whatever, because it's kind of conjuncting that point once again. So we'll have to see what happens there. But it is interesting that we're having this conjunction, this kind of deep penetrating, mind conjunction where we're starting a cycle in our life at the same time that we're having this first quarter moon. Within hours, in fact, that they both happen. So divine timing, once again, I think, here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was thinking that, I'm wondering if there may be some new information or new ideas or just like some kind of follow-up or aftershock from what it was that we experienced last week. And that could be in the world, some kind of something, a residual or something that comes up following what it was that she said last week. And then also just personally in our lives, like what did we experience when the Sun and Venus were conjunct Pluto last week, especially around our sense of identity and relationships and how we connect at a very deep level. I wonder if this week there's, something else that comes to us, whether that is, again, new information or just a new idea or more clarity around things.
The clarity seems right. And even just speaking from this new understanding, because essentially when two planets come together in a conjunction, if we're going to talk about conjunctions real quick for those that don't know, when a conjunction happens, it's basically the fusing of two energies together, where those two functions kind of work not only in tandem, but like as if they're like merging together, coming together to really not only kind of merge that focus, but by them combining, what happens is that we basically start a new cycle, as we, conjunctions in your own chart are a little bit different than conjunctions as we're talking about them, because we're talking about moving planets in a mundane sense. And so that's what makes this aspect so potent, is because, our mind is getting on board with, certain truths that have been coming to light a lot lately, whether they're truths within ourselves or they're like truths that Oprah is speaking, and that we're like, oh yes, that makes sense. The world needs to hear these things. Either way, we are now able to understand those things better, or merge our own mind with some of the deep sensings that we've been having, because Pluto is a serious planet in a way. It helps us, like you were saying earlier, Shawna, we get honest with ourselves and helps uproot some deep seated things that might lie beneath the surface within us, so that we can like transmute our energy in a way. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Mercury's there is kind of giving a new lease to the mind in a sense. And I feel like it's kind of like like, even though it's an earth, I feel like it's like kind of water that washes it away, so we can start anew there. And maybe that will come with that Jupiter in Scorpio, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But yeah.
Yeah, well, and what I think is really, okay, so I have a few things. I really like all the things that you just said.
Get it out, Shawna.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So the blending, the conjunction, the two energies are merging together, and it gives me this image of when we blend colors together. Like when we blend blue and red paint, it becomes purple. And so this combination, it's not just Mercury and Pluto together. They come together and then they create something that is unique. What is that term? The sum of the parts
equal the whole, or something like that. It's a unified focus in a sense.
The whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
That just took me a second. So that is really interesting, and I happen to know, I'm thinking of one person in particular that I know has this combination Mercury and Pluto together in their natal chart. And what I've noticed with people that have this is that there's a very keen intuitive awareness. Like there's this ability to really sense what is going on underneath the surface at subtle levels. along with that, there's an ability to sense the truth of things like 24/7 to really know what's going on with people. And a lot of times this it can be uncomfortable sometimes. You know things that you don't want to know in a certain weird way. And so I'm wondering if that may come up too, where it's like sometimes the truth hurts. And sometimes we have to work through feelings of shame or guilt when Pluto is involved too. And so,
and Capricorn.
Yeah, exactly. So my sense is, though, because we had the Sun and Venus pass over this point already, that any, like, some of those more difficult to deal with feelings of shame and guilt, like those have already been illuminated and brought to the surface. And this, like you're saying, Mel, it's kind of like the shrapnel is being washed away or cleansed when Mercury passes over this point.
Yeah, because we've done a lot of the work already. So many things have hit this point, and we just had a new moon around this area as well. So it seems like Mercury is following suit to kind of dance over certain points that we've already been to, which I think we can now get our minds on board with some of the things that we've experienced or some of the changes that we're making in our lives, and just get clear there, because that's essentially what Mercury is trying to do. And especially in Capricorn and an Earth sign, we're sticking to the facts. I keep remembering with our Saturn conjunction there, just the facts. So yeah, I think this is a time where we can kind of tell it like it is and have that kind of straight talk. And do some necessary things that we might need to do while we're still, even though we've moved into the Aquarius season, we had a Capricorn new moon that is kind of flavoring the whole lunar cycle this month. So, and we still have plenty of planets in Capricorn. So, this type of conjunction can really get us down to brass tacks as what we should pay attention to and how we should plan our lives and be wise and careful with our thinking as we're going forward, because we can't reiterate enough times that Capricorn likes to take its time. Like, take your time here, focus on whatever project you're working on or whatever area of your life that needs a little attention, or that you want to kind of start fresh with a new, just a new outlook on what you're dealing with. And I think it can be very beneficial if we kind of use this intense focus and this concentration that might be coming up at this time, especially since we're in the first quarter moon, which is all about, taking action in our lives and being able to push past to the next level. And I think with our minds being here, whether we're, planning our plan of attack in a sense, or if we have to say something to others and have deep conversations in order to get to the bottom of something to move forward, this is the time where I think we can really do that and start fresh on this cycle, especially for the next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really perfect actually, because we have the first quarter moon is exact the same day as this conjunction, Mercury conjunct Pluto. And then the first quarter moon in Taurus, it's happening so early in the degrees of Taurus that it'll actually, as it moves forward, it'll trine Mercury and Pluto, I think the next day. I think that would be like Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, things are flowing, things are happening. We have the capacity to connect mind and heart.
Yes. And I love how all of our new moons in the past how many months have happened in the late degrees of a sign. So it's kind of interesting how we keep having these first quarters, but the first quarters are essentially lined with the same energy that the new moon had to begin with. So I feel that what would normally be a more stressful first quarter might not be so this time. It's we can act with more just in more alignment with, where the energy started to begin with. And I think it's so perfect, Shawna, that we actually have, both the Mercury, so basically Mercury and Pluto being in Capricorn, that means they are disposed by or kind of represented by Saturn, who just happens to be at 4 degrees Capricorn and trining this, first quarter moon perfectly.
Yeah.
So, I think trine to Saturn is, we have and the fact that it's trining the moon is, I think we have the emotional carry through right now to take action in our lives. Like our emotions aren't fighting the wave of change or where we want to devote ourselves or get real in our lives. If anything, we're flowing with that energy, and we can kind of get what we want to see in place. Or if we have to act on any new habits or establish new rituals in our life, because, once again, that first quarter moon is about acting on something, and usually we're acting on something that might be a little out of our comfort zone. So we can kind of establish new things, especially in Taurus, because Taurus can, like you're saying, like root down, and really make something that might be new in our lives increasingly more stable. So yeah, I think the Saturn contact is really going to help us, focus on our achievements, because we're talking about Capricorn here, and then really get in there and tackle whatever tasks are before us at this time of action, essentially.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And that reminds me of something that we haven't really mentioned too much in the last episode or just now yet, is that, we're basically in eclipse season now. And I wonder if this first quarter moon will kind of usher in little inklings of what to expect with the eclipse season. But I like the fact that it has this more stable quality to it, with it being in Taurus and then trining Saturn. Because typically eclipse season, it does feel a bit unstable because there's change. And so I'm wondering if, contrary to maybe other eclipse situations, we may feel this more of a sense of focus, more of a sense of stability, in contrast to other times.
Yeah. And well, we can only hope, right?
I knew you were going to say that.
We can only hope. But no, I think you're absolutely right about that, to be honest. And if we have anything that we're kind of working through right now in regards to the stability of Taurus, is Taurus can be a little stubborn and doesn't like to change. There is that. So maybe everything is kind of falling in place, and we just have to work emotionally through, traveling into new territory in a way. And that's that's how it has to be right now. So I love the stabilizing energy of the Taurus first quarter, and us being able to take action to really make something concrete happen in our lives at this time. And if you do feel a little funky, it's all about, shifting gears into the future. And exactly what we're going to be talking about here shortly when we talk about Mercury and Jupiter sextiling, which is going to be happening this whole week, So yeah, I think that is a thing to look out for with Taurus.
Definitely.
But also to look out for Taurus, I wanted to share with everyone the Sabian symbol for this, because I've really been enjoying the pictures that it's been painting, and it actually really ties into what I was just talking about, with, moving through change. Because once again, we're talking about not only this first quarter moon in Taurus, but we're talking about Mercury conjunct Pluto. And Pluto is all about certain changes in our lives, and the mind getting on board with that. Just moving through, the shifting sands of our lives, in a sense. And so I looked up the Sabian symbol for this first quarter. And so it's like 4 degrees and some change for Taurus. So we're going to round up. So we got 5 degrees Taurus, a widow at an open grave. I know it sounds morbid, but the key word here is reorientation. And the theme is letting go and moving on. How Taurus is that, because Taurus can hold on, stand that ground, and be stubborn with something, but we have to get ourselves aligned with, moving on in our life, because we're in eclipse season. We just had a new moon in Capricorn pile up on Pluto. It's the beginning of the year. It's time to move on. And so the opportunity here is essentially to, take advantage of, looking towards the future and look into your skills and talents, because this is a time, especially in Capricorn, we might we might forget certain things that we're good at, or we might have not embraced things that we can, that are just natural talents within us that can actually get us to the next level that we're looking for here. So this is a really future-oriented degree in some way, and the risk here is about letting disappointments get you down or fretting over things that you lost, which Pluto also ties into those types of things too. Things fall away from your life when Pluto comes into contact, but it's always for your own good when it happens. So, this is all about staying focused on the future and recognizing a new opportunity when it's before you, I think. So, Shawna, what do you think about a widow at an open grave and this letting go and moving on theme?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting image. For me, it really ties to the fact that Pluto is involved here, because Pluto is about the death and decay and then the rebirth that follows. And Pluto reminds us that death is not the end, that everything, like there's always an end and then a beginning at the same time. And
like a conjunction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in our society, our mindset is so much that if there is an end, if there is loss, that is forever, and that nothing new will come. Like, we fear loss so much. And the thing is life goes on, even after death. I mean, depending on your belief system, life goes on. There's always something that comes from an ending. And I think, it's, I don't know if I would say like, it's always, like I think a lot about this lately, like the element of like good versus bad and pleasant versus unpleasant. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be rosy if you adopt this mindset, but it means that, when we have a sense of faith around the fact that things will continue and that there will be something new that comes in, it can be comforting sometimes. And that we don't know what will happen until we actually go through the process and meet that ending. We meet that sense of decay. It's only then that we can meet the new life as well. Exactly.
And, with Mercury conjunct Pluto, this is, a time where you could be obsessing over something, because that intense focus that happens with Pluto energy can allow us to move past certain things in our mind, but it can also get us stuck in a loop, in a sense. So just be aware of that during, the first part of the week. If you find yourself obsessing over something that is unhealthy, it's one thing to obsess over something that's going to help you move on and like get somewhere and like, I'm obsessed with this idea, I really want to work on it, versus I'm obsessed with this old disappointment that happened in my life and like certain outworn elements of experience that are no longer helping me in my development. You kind of have to decipher a healthy obsession versus the other kind of obsession. It's not helping anyone. It's really about adjustment here and adjustment of our focus, and to really count, like the blessings that we do have, like be grateful for a new start around something, or a new mental vision around how you see your life and where it's going. Because, the only constant is change, right?
Indeed.
So, all right. So let's talk about some of these tarot cards here, because this is an interesting little pair that came up for this transit. I was trying to wrap my mind around these. But for the first quarter tarot, mixed with that Mercury conjunct Jupiter, I drew the King of Wands as the focus and the Hermit as the grounding. This is very interesting. It's an interesting pair to me, the King of Wands is all about, kind of being that bold, charismatic character that is able to inspire, yourself or other people, and very much a leadership dynamic there. So because we're in Capricorn, which is definitely a leadership energy, we have our own leadership and our own inner authority. So I'm wondering if this king is really going to help us draw from our own self-leadership right now. And with the Hermit there, the Hermit follows its own light. It has its own guiding light. So I'm thinking that these two together will allow us to kind of, take the reins and take the power for our own life and follow that guiding light and be inspired by our own process in a way, because I think we're onto new insights and a larger perspective regarding our lives. And so now it's good to be that optimistic, kind of energy that wands are, I think. So Shawna, what do you think about the King of Wands and the Hermit hanging out together?
Yeah, it is an interesting combination because the King of Wands to me speaks of this bold leadership kind of role, being out in the world. And the Hermit, in contrast, is about the inner world. It's about seclusion and being with oneself. And the two together, it makes me think of some of the people that I respect the most, that, whether or not they're mentors or teachers, the people that are out in the world and that are well respected. I find that a lot of that is because they've gone through their own inner process, their own inner struggles, and they've been through some shit. And it makes me think of Oprah too, because she's been through some major hardships in her life, and she's been able to take that and to use that. She's been able to overcome those things, and not by like ignoring them or pretending like they didn't happen. She's been open and talked about it. And so I think these two cards remind me of that like the Hermit, the going inside and connecting with your inner lights and using that, and then being able to be out in the world and to be a strong leader at the same time.
Yeah, that's how I really see the high side of these cards. If we're looking at that, I think that's a great perspective on that. Because we're really connecting with our own inner authority right now with all these planets in Capricorn. We got, that Mercury conjunct Pluto. We're getting in touch with ourselves in that way. And the only thing I would add really, since we are talking about a first quarter moon, and sometimes, first quarter can make us a little cranky. We get a little frustrated with things because we're having to take action in a certain way. So the only thing I would say, just because, Pluto and Mercury together, it can incite, deep conversations and powerful conversations, and ones where we have to actually be conscious of what it is we're saying, because our words have such gravity at this time that, we got to be careful because they're powerful. They're coming out, like a 1-2 punch with everything that we say, in a sense. And this king, with wands just in general, but especially a king, might be a little overly dramatic in some way. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you are involved in any drama in your life, this could be a time to remove yourself from it, because, the Hermit is about going within and recouping one's energy. So that could be something there, or, because we're essentially trying to stabilize those emotions. And that's kind of what that Taurus moon is here for. So you can kind of stabilize by taking a time out right now. So if you find yourself in some serious conversations, or just life looks a little dramatic right now, and you're like, how am I going to do this all? What's going on here? Just take a step back, recoup, and then get back in the game. So,
yeah, I think that's a very good point.
Just another little side of it. I know that's the things with cards, is they have so many sides. Okay, so some questions to take away for Mercury conjunct Pluto and that first quarter moon in Taurus. I would ask, where is my focus gravitating at this time? What particular truths are coming up for review? With this time of intensity of thinking upon all of us, what is it that I want to get to the bottom of? I would ask, how solid is my plan for the future? Does my outlook seem promising and hopeful, or is it still dwelling on past disappointments? Can I take action now, knowing that it is a new day filled with opportunity? And then lastly, I would ask, is there anything I need to speak up about? Is there a conversation I must have with myself or another? Can I come from a place of inner authority to give it to me straight so that a new cycle can begin?
Nice.
All right, so let's move on to our next segment, and we're going to be discussing Mercury once again in Capricorn, who will be in a sextile aspect to Jupiter in Scorpio, and what we're titling Finding Answers. So some exacts on that. We're going to have that sextile on Thursday, January 25th at 3:28 a.m. Pacific time, which is 11:28 a.m. Universal time. And then 9:28 p.m. Aussie Eastern Time. And that sextile is going to happen at 20 degrees, Capricorn and Scorpio. So, Shawna, kick us in with your next quote.
So this again is from Oprah from her Golden Globe speech. I've interviewed and portrayed people who've withstood some of the ugliest things life can throw at you. But the one quality all of them seem to share is an ability to maintain hope for a brighter morning, even during our darkest nights. And I thought this was really perfect for Mercury sextile Jupiter for a few different reasons. Number one, Jupiter, the fact that Jupiter is in Scorpio, and the fact that when Jupiter made its ingress into the sign of Scorpio, we had all of these issues around sex scandals come up, all of these things where people had been quiet for a very long time and things were coming up, secrets were being revealed. And, it's a moment in time where things came up to be revealed, but before that, there was so much of things that were hidden. There was like these dark nights where these women not saying things and not speaking out. Like there's a certain element of darkness there. There's a certain element of shame. And I like this particular quote for Mercury sextile Jupiter, because Mercury is like, hey, I want to talk about it. And Jupiter is like, yes, let's talk about it. Let's bring a sense of light to the situation. And that doesn't mean that it's always sunshine and gumdrops, but that means that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that there is that ray of hope. And so I'm wondering if we're going to be feeling a little bit of that this week.
I hope so. And I mean, let's change her name to Oprah, because essentially, I love it because she gives so many people hope. And that speaks to her Jupiter nature, having, being an Aquarius and a Sagittarius mix. She does have that hope to share with others and to really empower us to realize that can be a reality in our lives, that it doesn't have to be this, that you don't have to live in a secret, that you can share this pain with the world, and kind of just be who you are and share that with others, for your own growth, because we're talking about Mercury in Capricorn. Once again, we're to the facts. We're keeping it straight. We're like, it's still conjunct Pluto. This is a whole week where Mercury is tapping into Pluto, Jupiter, and Uranus. So it's just kind of this energy of transforming certain things so that we can move into the future, and essentially break free in areas of our life by doing so. And it's not always easy to do those types of things. And especially when we're talking about the realm of Scorpio, and like what you were just saying, Shawna, having those, kind of darker things kind of come up, and being able to work through what has happened in our lives and what has happened in the world and with other people. And so I think this is a great time to talk about those things, to talk about that change and just the way the world is changed right now, and how we've all changed within ourselves, and we're finding greater hope for that new day, and finding answers within ourselves, just by starting to see things in a new light, and really change our thinking in a lot of ways. So I think this is, because we're talking about a sextile, so this is a supportive aspect where we have the opportunity to act on something, and we can take initiative in our lives. And this is one where we're able to communicate, that kind of future vision, and that growth that we're looking for, with ourselves and with others. So I think it is a hopeful aspect. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate the fact that this is happening. So, this entire week is so interesting, the way that it's this progression of Mercury. So we have Mercury conjunct Pluto, which is like, all right, give it to me straight. What's the real shit that's happening? And then Mercury sextile Jupiter, which we're talking about now. And so it's like, oh, okay, there's a sense of hope that comes. And then the next segment we'll talk about in a second is where Mercury squares Uranus, and there's something maybe unexpected that comes. And so I really appreciate the fact that Pluto is in the mix first, which can be a little bit harsh sometimes. It's more like, tell me the bad news first. And then Jupiter is like, okay, now tell me the good news. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
And appropriate. I like that. And then Uranus comes around and it's like the unexpected news. And then surprise, now this. But we'll get to that in a second. But yes, all this energy is happening all at the same time this week. And, our minds are going to be so active this whole week. And it's almost like our minds are getting that, that yearly makeover in a sense. There's a lot going on there. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, especially when we're talking about Jupiter and we're talking about hope and the future and expanding ourselves in some way, this to me really means that, our minds are ready to kind of tackle something new. Like this is an opening sextile here where we have the energy to take the initiative to kind of change our minds about something, or if our minds have already changed around something, we're able to start to implement that thinking or that communicative skill out into the world. Because, Jupiter adds a little confidence to the mix. So I'm thinking that our mind is going to hopefully be more confident with the changes that are happening in our lives. And we're going to see that ray of hope and maybe even embrace new concepts for our growth, especially since we're going to have, Uranus squeaking in some insights here and there, which we're going to talk about here shortly. But ultimately, I think we're just really focused on the big picture right now. And we have the opportunity to communicate that not only with ourselves, but with others, and maybe start certain conversations that lead to our future direction. Because once again, we have this opportunity aspect, the sextile. Like maybe we reach out to someone because we have an idea and we're like, okay, I'm going to give this a go, but I need their help on it, or I want to hear what they think, or maybe I want a new job and I have to, update my LinkedIn profile or something, like we can start doing the things that really lead to the future direction that we're looking into right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Mel. It's definitely a good time to ask for help, look for new information. Where can we find opportunities? How can we ask for what it is that we need? And that may look like actually literally asking someone for something, or it may just look like research, just Googling stuff. It's definitely like, yes, seek the information that you require.
That's so perfect too with Jupiter and Scorpio. Yeah, get in there, investigate it, especially with Pluto there with the conjunction, we're ready to get down to the bottom of a matter. So if you need to find out more about the direction that you're now being carried in, get in there, figure it out. Like this is the time where we can get greater clarity about the direction that we're headed and greater clarity about what we really even want in life. So there's so many facets from like this big picture thing to just the little things that we're talking about right now. Like get in there, do that Google search, find out more. Because yes, we can kind of take our knowledge to the next level, I think, in regards to everything that we've been thinking about. And it's interesting too, because we also have, this is the aspect where Mars is at 29 degrees Scorpio. So we're on this like tested degree of Mars and its strength there, and where we've moved through certain changes in our lives, and gotten down to the, brass tacks about things. And we're about to move into Sagittarius, as far as Mars is concerned, where our action oriented self is going to be more inclined to take risks and be more optimistic. And so we're just kind of at this tested point to where like this might be like the dark right before the dawn. And then the second that it moves into Sagittarius, we might feel a little more like, whew, I'm ready to get out there, take some action. I've done the research, right? I've kept with it this whole time. I've stayed devoted to it, with all this Saturn Capricorn action. And now it's time to get out there, expand my horizons, and get in that Jupiter territory.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking too is the combination of Capricorn and Scorpio. So we have this pile up in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, and then Jupiter and Mars in Scorpio. Mars at this the very last determined point of Scorpio, very fixed, very focused. This combination, it really lends itself to persistence and one step at a time, one day at a time, one little nugget of information at a time. And so I think that's important to keep in mind as well, is that we're most likely, and we don't need to have all the answer today, right now, in one chunk. Like it's more like we're kind of chipping away at things. And so I think that's a good strategy for whatever it is that we're working on too. It's like one little tiny bit at a time. And take a risk too. I've gotten such good resources and information just reaching out to someone where I was like a little bit afraid, but I'm like, well, I'll, email that person. I'll ask for a reference, or I'll ask them, if they can point me in the right direction of this thing that I'm trying to figure out. And so I wouldn't be afraid to do that at this time.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, because here we are talking about Scorpio, which kind of focuses on shared resources. So we are more inclined to work with others. We're more inclined to get something back from others when we are willing to ask and take the initiative. And chances are everyone's going to win in the scenario, especially if you're talking about like business and finance, because Scorpio and Capricorn are all about these kind of aspects of life. So if you're working within those types of frameworks, this could be a very potentially good aspect in that realm. I mean, in many realms, but in that one in particular.
Definitely.
So let's talk about these tarot cards, because once again, a little interesting but fitting, I would say. And so for Mercury sextile Jupiter, I got the Queen of Cups as the focus and the Knight of Swords as the grounding. And this kind of, this actually really played into our theme for the week, and that's the speaking your truth. Like I feel that, because the Knight of Swords will speak its truth. But how do we speak that truth is the question. So I'm thinking that this might be a time, especially paired with that Pluto conjunction we were just talking about, where we do have to speak up, if we have something to say. We have to take that initiative once again with the sextile. It's just not going to happen. We have to be like, okay, I'm doing it. Because essentially, if what you're speaking comes from the heart, you can really do no wrong. You're being honest with yourself. You're being honest with others, no matter what the subject you're talking about is. I would stray away from any inner criticism or fear about contacting other people or like saying what it is that you need to say to get out there. Because sometimes the Queen of Cups she's so emotionally aware that she becomes so sensitive that she's not able to, fully share what she needs to share. But because it's grounded in the Knight of Swords, we need to get it out there. So I think just communicating from the heart at this time is going to, we're going to have a stronger grip on how we feel in order to do that. And I think we're going to be feeling a little self-assured enough to share what it is we're thinking with others at this time. So Shawna, what do you think about the Queen of Cups and the Knight of Swords getting together?
Yeah, I like that what you say, Mel. It reminds me of kind of this conundrum that I was working on recently, and something that I'm still kind of sussing out in the way that I interact with people is that sometimes, especially when I'm very close to a person, I'll like, if something is going on with them, I'll kind of get like a funny feeling, and I'll be like, you know, something's off with them. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, like, did I do something? Are they mad at me? You know, did I, or, you know, like what is happening? And it's not like I know literally what's happening with them, but I have kind of like this feeling. And it's always better when I just talk to them about it.
Yeah, right.
Instead of trying to like really tune in to like, okay, what am I sensing? What am I feeling? Like, yes, that's helpful. But at the end of the day, and usually when I talk to them, they're like, oh, it's, you know, blah, blah, blah. This other situation happened and, you know, I'm feeling this way about it and that kind of thing. And so, I'm reminded of that situation because I think that these cards speak to, yes, like we may be feeling an ability to intuitively tap into things and to be sensitive. But it's like, yes, that's only one part of the equation. We also need to have the conversations. And I'm thinking also of something that my grandma used to say. She'd be like, honey, God's going to help you, but you got to give him a hand.
No.
Oh yeah, it's so sweet. So like,
So
yes,
cute.
like the support, the Jupiterian support is there. The Queen of Cups is there, but we have to take a step. We have to ask for it. We have to act. And I think that's the Knight of Swords saying, yes, like ask and act.
Exactly, because the knights are all about action. You know, they're rushing off into battle, and that's why the Knight of Swords sometimes, you know, can speak its truth, but it can also do so very hastily or so frank and forceful that it's like, oh, easy, and we might feel a little. And we might feel a little emotional about that because that's the flip side of this, you know, especially at a 29-degree Mars where people might feel a little, you know, not necessarily a little stressed, maybe a little stressed depending on, you know, your situation, but it's a tested degree for a reason. And in Scorpio, can have a quick tongue. So, you know, I would say if you speak up in any way and you're dealing with any tactless people or someone else speaks up and they just do so in a really brusque way, you know, just use compassion with them and use compassion with yourself. Like you don't have to get in that. You don't have to like you were saying, Shawna, like, was it me? Is it about me? You know, like we don't have to take it there. Just be like, you're having a hard time. It's okay. You know, or you're not getting what I'm saying. I don't have to get riled up about it. I'm sharing what I need to share. It's cool. So I would just keep a lookout for that because, you know, that definitely happens when the Knight of Swords comes in. And the same with the Knight, you know, because it's so rational and it's just like, you know, this logic, you know, I'm going forward with this logic, you know. Sometimes the Knight can be a little cut off from feelings. So I think with the Queen of Cups being the focus here, that we can really, you know, is in our best interest to embrace maybe the heart over the head at this time a little bit, especially since we're talking about water signs and earth signs, you know. But also be sure to balance the two together because that's ultimately what we're looking for. But I feel like the heart is taking the lead a little here.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so some questions to take away for Mercury and Capricorn making a sextile aspect to Jupiter and Scorpio. I would ask, now that my mind is working with a bigger picture, what new concepts am I ready to embrace? Will this new way of envisioning my life help to bring greater clarity to find the answers that I need? I would ask, is there anything that I want to communicate to another regarding my vision for the future? Can I take the opportunity to get the dialogue started so that we both may benefit from this insight and higher perspective? And then lastly, I would ask, how well do I communicate from the heart? Am I able to speak with compassion for others, or do I share my thoughts in a forcefully dominant way? Or am I so sensitive that the words seem to never come out? Can I take the initiative to share my thoughts with the hope that they will be well received?
Excellent questions.
All right, so let's move on to our last segment here, and this is a juicy one, and that is Mercury once again in Capricorn, making a square to Uranus and Aries, and what we are titling A New Dawn. So some exacts on that. That square will be happening on Saturday, January 27th at 11:08 p.m. Pacific Time, which is Sunday, the 28th at 7:08 a.m. Universal Time, and then 5:08 p.m. Aussie Eastern Time. And that square will happen at 24 degrees Capricorn and Aries. So Shawna, kick us in with your last quote.
Okay, so this again is from Oprah's Golden Globe speech, and I'm feeling right now, I really wish that we could just like play her saying it, because I won't be able to do it justice, but here it goes. So I want all the girls watching here now to know that a new day is on the horizon. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women and some pretty phenomenal men fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, "Me too," again.
I just got the chills, even with you saying that, just like that.
Yes. So I chose this particular passage for Mercury square Uranus because so Mercury, like we've talked about, it's about communication, sharing ideas. It's about speaking your truth. It's about speaking in general. And Uranus is about changing the system. It's about changing something, not necessarily for the sake of novelty. I associate like novelty more with Jupiter, but Uranus is more like, okay, there's something here that is essentially broken. Like there's something here that doesn't work and it needs to be reinvigorated and reinvented. And the term overthrown comes to mind. And so this is something, of course, we may see out in the world, but then also at a personal level, there is something like with our capacity to be individuals. Uranus is also related to your individual expression, how it is that you, like what it is that sets you apart from the crowd and how you can be a part of a community, but also retain your own individual expression at the same time. And so there's something with the way that we think that is going to be shifting here. And it's a square. So it's like, okay, it needs to be confronted. There is something that is going to change with our capacity to intellectualize and then also to have our individuality.
I like that. And that speaks, the whole individuality really speaks to Uranus being in Aries and how we've all been shifting in the character that we play in the world, whether it's shifts that are internally have happened or shifts that externally have happened, because even these world events that we're so affected by, like just reading that quote from Oprah, we all felt it. We all understand that. We all get that. And by experiencing those kind of, those worldly communications, because we're talking about Mercury and Capricorn here, it's society speaking to us in a sense, and Oprah being that voice, those insights in turn change who we are as people, that affects us on a personal level. And so I think, just by our minds being aligned with, the community that's around us and the social standing of what the world looks like right now is really challenging us within to be better people and to be stronger individuals so that we can communicate to, or we can contribute to society in a helpful, way here and to bring in that new dawn, because it's not up to everyone else to do it. It's up to ourselves to do it. And then in turn, we with all of us taking that individual responsibility, there we go. There's two words together for this. Yes. By taking those individual responsibility, we basically transform the world that we live in. And I know this might be a Jupiterian lofty goal in this moment, but it has to start somewhere. And each step we take is just as important as the last or the next. So yeah, I think this is a very beautiful thing on a grander scale.
Mel, I love that so much, because that's the thing, is that the new dawn, the new horizon, the whatever it is that is happening, like society doesn't change because society changes. Society changes because individual people change one step at a time, one person at a time. And yeah, it starts with one person speaking up, or one person saying, hey, that's not okay. Or one person saying, hey, like, what's going on with you? You know, do you want to talk about it? And I think that that's so important. And I think that, yeah, we have the capacity to do that this week. We have the capacity to have a different mindset.
And it's interesting, Shawna, because, you know, we have all these planets now that we're in Aquarius. We got the sun there and Venus there. I think that's it right now. We do record these early, so gotta look ahead.
The sun, Venus, and South Node.
Yes, well, and that's exactly what I was going to say. The South Node. We're about to have all these planets. Once we get out of this Capricorn realm, everything's going to be contacting that South Node and these old placements and bringing to new light of how we can, you know, go forth in those areas. And we're talking about a South Node in Aquarius, which has to do, once again, you know, with the community of people and the world in general, and triggering that North Node placement of Leo, and, you know, how we as individuals, you know, can, by being our authentic self that is socially aware, help to impact that and change those old realities. And so I think we are going to get a lot of dose of what has been in order to gain awareness to what can be, if we make those changes in our lives and in the world, you know. But to get there, we need something to shake us up, right? Mm-hmm. And this is exactly that type of aspect, because whether it's something inside of us where all of a sudden we have this new insight, because the mind is going to be stimulated right now. That's the thing, is when anything comes in contact with Uranus, you know, you get that shock. It's like you're hooked up to a shock treatment or something. And so the mind is going to be jolted, whether it's from within, which is a good possibility just because, you know, this is a closing square. But it's also very possible that something outside of us will trigger us to have to view things in a different light, or we will find that certain things we thought were just set up in solid, Capricorn solid, all of a sudden shift. You know, like this is a week where, you know, your plans can change. Things can change out of the blue, and we just have to be flexible and go with the flow, and wrap our minds around why these changes might be happening, or what's essentially going on there. And why that need to shake us up is happening, because it can be in a myriad of different ways, and it depends on your chart. You know, we always say this depends on your chart where this is taking place. But this is definitely something that you can expect. It's the only thing you can expect about Uranus, is that it's unexpected.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Mel. The Mercury and Uranus, in any kind of combination, there's typically this sense of eclectic thoughts, electric thoughts, like where it's, I've noticed sometimes people will feel kind of like a little bit of mental burnout because the mind is more active. It's like a buzzing mind kind of thing. I'm wondering if the fact that Mercury is in Capricorn, which is Earth, it's more solid, more grounded, if it won't be as kind of like electric mind as normal. But yeah, expect the unexpected for sure. And the more that we can be open to that, I think the better, because it is what it is. We can't, can't stop the unexpected. It just happens and we got to roll with it.
Yeah. And the fact that the square is coming from Capricorn, which, I know some Capricorn and we like control. And so when things are not in our control or what we have so perfectly planned and set up, it, kind of goes to pieces. It's like your insides are just like, so that being said, we also have to watch ourselves to a little bit with our communications, just because when those things go awry and we're not as flexible as we need to be, then all the things start coming out your mouth that you might later regret, or you get frustrated and you start to do impulsive moves. Like if you're driving and you're like, oh my God, that person, why did they do that? And then all of a sudden you're doing crazy things yourself. And so you got to kind of be, got to be aware of, this potential this week, just so that, you don't get yourself into a situation you can't get out of based on not being flexible enough. And I just remembered, Shawna, that I have this in my chart. I have the Mercury square Uranus in a square. So I guess I'm familiar with this energy, but in a different way.
So I'm curious. So how do you feel that manifests for you?
Well, it manifests in different ways. I think a lot of times what can happen is, I think the number one thing that happens actually is people misconstrue what I say. They get their own meaning out of something and it's not what I intended. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not so great. And so you kind of got to watch yourself there, and you're going to watch yourself for like I said, hasty things that come out of the mouth, because that Uranus energy like kicks everything up. Things are at lightning speed. My Mercury is at lightning speed, and that has its pluses and it definitely has its minuses, because Uranus gives no fucks, as they say. And so that can happen right now, especially since we have the moon in Gemini, which also can be the same thing. So I have a feeling the end of the week is going to be a little electric. It's going to be pretty busy, I think, especially once the moon moves into Gemini, and we're just going to be kind of in go mode here in some way, and we're going to just be rolling with the punches. So I would just say, if you're interrupted in any way, because that's another thing, is like the Capricorn in me, like if someone interrupts me and I'm in a deep process like that, if I'm in that Mercury conjunct Pluto mode where I'm like in it, and you interrupt me, oh my God, it's like the most frustrating feeling in the world. And I can't be like, go away, you fool. You have to be, tactful, and you have to be able to express yourself. Hey, I'm working on this right now. Like, can we do this at another time?
Could you please get the fuck out?
Yeah. You just stare daggers at them. And that speaks to being able to communicate how you're feeling well, and where, my Mercury square Uranus, especially since my Mercury is conjunct Jupiter and Leo, I sometimes take it a little too far and I might just snap back, being a Scorpio rising. So that's my own makeup there. This is a little bit of a different orientation. But just know that these types of things, can kind of come up. So and I thought this was as interesting, played into the tarot cards we just spoke of too, with that Queen of Cups and that Knight of Swords, because this is definitely some Knight of Swords energy as well playing in. And because these aspects are so close to each other, all this is blending this week. So you can kind of imagine, how the course of affairs is going to go in some way, I think.
Yeah. And you know what I'm really thinking of as we're speaking too, is that, the beginning of the week is more intense. And then the end of the week, things kind of feel more up in the air. The combination of Mercury, Uranus, and then, like you said, the moon in Gemini, things are a little more, it feels more unstable.
Yes.
And and like we still have all of this Capricorn energy. So it's like, I'm wondering, okay, how do we find the things that we can control, as you know, throughout the whole week, but especially like, I think that it would benefit us to kind of lay that foundation earlier in the week. And so whatever kind of self-care practices, whatever that looks like, whether that is exercise or meditation or just having quiet time in the morning, quiet time in the evening, whatever that is. And then maybe it's just like day by day, especially this weekend, like, okay, what do I literally have control over right now? I have control over the fact that I can focus on my breathing, that I can like not clench my jaw when I'm frustrated and things like that. I think that may be helpful to know what those things are. You know, maybe it's having control over our schedule. And when we say yes and no to certain things or certain people, that may be helpful when things become more unstable over the weekend.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, you know, we might just need to get out there and burn off some energy, especially with, you know, this cardinal energy and Uranus and Aries. But we have to kind of take a little bit of patience with that, just because this is, you know, and I don't want to scare anybody, but the reality is sometimes this is accident inducing type of energy. So we have to be patient to some extent, because I think if we lose our patience in whatever aspect that, you know, this is kind of falling in our charts, that's when, you know, that's when an accident can happen. Whether it's an actual accident, it's a verbal accident, or, you know,
verbal accident. I love that.
It was a verbal accident. I apologize. So yeah, because, you know, the reality is because we're so stimulated, this is also the type of aspect where we might feel pressured, you know, especially mental pressure, to act in some way. And we might need to, just because a square is definitely an action-oriented aspect, but we have to do that action with some forethought here, with some Capricorn energy. So let's use all that kind of, you know, weighted down Capricorn, you know, turtle-like energy to help us here a little bit, I think. But ultimately, Shawna, I think this could be a time where we just have new, you know, we're getting those insights. We have new things coming to us. And if we're flexible with the situation, this could be a really fruitful period to carry us to the next level, in a sense.
I 100,000% agree.
So that being said, let's talk about these tarot cards, because I think they kind of play into that notion a little bit. So our friend, the High Priestess, is back as our focus. She's been hanging out on the podcast the last like 3 weeks, I think. So we got the High Priestess as the focus, and then we have 3 of Pentacles as the grounding. And I thought this was very appropriate, A, for the week, and B, for, you know, being in Capricorn and stuff. So there's a couple different ways that this can manifest, but I'm wondering, just because of, you know, that Uranian energy that's at play, if maybe we're kind of intuiting, you know, some hidden potentials right now, and on how to put our skills to work, you know, because we got a lot of planets still in Capricorn, and we're kind of planning this future, and, you know, in order to get there, we got to use what we got. And sometimes we might forget what it is that we got. And so maybe we're being reminded of these things, or we are being challenged in some way to take what it is that we already possess and twist it a little bit to go beyond how we've been using it. So, you know, this is a time where you just might remember how good you are at something, and you forgot the potential that lies there. And so, yeah, you can kind of follow that wave and morph it into something that works even better for you in the now. Because I feel like Uranus is really about the now as well. It's like in this moment, you know. So Shawna, what do you think about the High Priestess and the 3 of Pentacles influencing our Mercury square Uranus?
Yeah. So number 1, I love the High Priestess card. It's such a beautiful and interesting card. So it very much reminds me of, like the hidden things, the mysterious things that we have inside of us that can guide us. And then the 3 of Pentacles is really interesting. So the number 3 always reminds me of creativity and the creative resources that we have, and those can be inner resources, or those can also just be through combining our forces with other people. And so, yeah, I'm wondering, like, the term alliance keeps popping into my head, and I'm not entirely sure why, but that just keeps popping in, and I'm wondering if there's maybe something that we have, and then we need an alliance with someone else in order to put that out into the world. And I would apply that to Uranus too, because Uranus, it is about individuality, but it's also about our capacity to be a part of a community, to be a part of a tribe, and, like, how do we fit in but not merge? And so I think these cards are speaking of that too, is it's like, okay, how do we maintain our individuality, that sense of specialness that is inside of us, and then how do we kind of like combine that with other people to create something really cool?
Exactly, because we all have individual strengths, right? And when we embrace those strengths and then bring them to other people, as they say, two hands. I think we have two hands, four hands, two sets of hands. I don't know. Something makes lighter work. So I'm wondering if part of it is like us just realizing, hey, I don't need to control this whole situation. I can kind of, team up with other people and reach out and stretch myself there. But ultimately, it's like, I think we're receiving a lot of energy right now, regarding our inner guidance is kind of pushing us where to put our energy. And that bigger plan is starting to appear, because that's another thing with Three of Pentacles. It's got that planning, it's got that determination and focus there. So I'm thinking that bigger plan is starting to appear here, and chances are we're going to know who we want to work with. We're going to know, like, it's going to pop in our head, or maybe we have an unexpected communication with someone we haven't talked to in a while, or we're introduced to someone that we're like, oh, what, maybe this will lead to, greater material gain or professional growth in some way, because we do have all that Capricorn energy. And so how we can gain personally, by teaming up with other people. So everybody kind of wins there. But sometimes we have to relinquish certain control. And maybe that's where the mind in Capricorn is like, but I want to control every aspect of it. And it's like, Uranus is like, give it up, woman. Come on. We're trying to help you here. So that could be a part of it right now. Cause I really like that, Shawna, with alliance, because it seems to play into these cards. And it really makes a lot of sense. Especially when we're trying to build something that's, greater. We got to work with others.
Definitely.
So, yeah. So, I'll leave you with this. So I think we all have a special skill to share with the world. And sometimes it takes that high priestess moment to figure out what that is. So if Uranus sends you that bolt out of the blue to challenge yourself, to give something a try, then I would honor that right now, because maybe you don't even know what that skill is, and now it's trying to come through. So just be open. Just essentially be open this weekend to whatever it comes through, I think.
I love that. That's great advice, Mel. We don't always know what that thing is, and sometimes it just shows up at our doorstep.
Exactly. We all have those moments, and they happen throughout our lives. So, and that's what makes it exciting. So, all right. So some questions to take away with Mercury in a square to Uranus. I would ask myself, knowing that this week can bring some unexpected communications, can I stay flexible yet grounded in what I encounter? Will I go with the flow even though plans may change? I would ask, what new insights are stimulating my brain this week? Are there little inklings of potential that are filtering in that I can take action on? Can I rest assured that something that's fresh and different could possibly be just what I'm looking for? And then lastly, I would ask, is my inner guidance speaking in radical ways right now? Can I see a bigger plan starting to appear within my projects? Can a forgotten skill and/or a new relationship to my work save the day and bring about a new dawn?
I love that.
Aw, I know these are good ones to make. I felt, yeah. Yes. So, all right, Shawna, what have we learned?
Everything.
Everything. We've learned so much, which is so perfect for a Mercury week. We've learned that the week of January 22nd, we're going to be speaking our truths essentially here. We've got Mercury conjunct Pluto in that first quarter moon in Taurus in the beginning of the week. And we're going to be, asking others to give it to us straight, or asking ourselves, because we're going to get down to what's real in our lives, what's the future look like, and how can I take action on what is here today. We learned that Mercury is also going to sextile Jupiter in Scorpio, and we're finding answers and rooting down and getting to the bottom of things. And we are seeing our lives from a bigger picture. And now we have that opportunity to act on the new things that we know. And then lastly, we're learning that Mercury is squaring Uranus, and that a new dawn is here, and that new dawn may change your plans a little bit. So be flexible this week, because, you never know what can happen, but what can happen might send you in a direction that is ultimately very fulfilling in the end. And like we said earlier, individual responsibility is everything. So Shawna, I know you have an excellent action item for our peeps to take away, so please share.
I do. So this is along the lines of creating alliances. So I wonder, what alliances are we creating? And we're in the waxing cycle of the moon. So it is about taking action. A lot of the things that we've talked about are along those lines. So the action item for this week is to reach out to someone and ask for something that you want, ask for something that you need. Extra points if it is surrounding information or assistance, and if it's a little bit scary. So that's action item to ask for something that you need or want.
I love that. And that's not always easy for Capricorn to do. It's hard to ask for help. But it's not. We make it hard on ourselves.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Band-Aid for me, at least. Like if there's something that I want and that I'm like I need to ask for this. It's the buildup is always worse than actually doing it. And then when I do it, I'm like, oh, that was easy. I'm happy I did that. Yeah, I feel a sense of relief afterwards.
Yes. So if you have those experiences where you rip that Band-Aid off and everything turns out just fine, or whatever happens to you and you're doing this action item, we'd love to hear what's going on. And, when you speak your truth, what that looks like and how that plays out. So feel free to comment or tag and let us know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We always love hearing how everyone is doing throughout the week. And then, of course, another way to get involved is to become a patron of the podcast to show your appreciation and to get those super cool show notes. So you can do that by going to feminineprinciplepodcast.podbean.com.
Yes. And you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Feminine Principle Podcast. All those places can get you right there. So yes. And so also just a little reminder, we're going to be hosting that full moon, total eclipse full moon live on Facebook. So that's going to happen once again on Tuesday, January 30th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 6 p.m. Universal time. And then Wednesday, the 31st at 4 a.m. Aussie Eastern time. So mark your calendars, mark those calendars. And join us. We're going to be talking about the eclipse and I don't know. It's always just so much fun. I said that earlier, but I'm saying it again. So we got an event page up. Thank you, Shawna, for making that for us. So if you want to join that event, you can just roll on in there and say going or interested or what have you. And we'll be posting a link there most likely the day before. So it should go active in that event page as well as our pages when that 10 a.m. rolls around. So yes, so that's how you can find us. And if you have any questions regarding the event, feel free to reach out because we'd like to get you there and get you the information you need.
Definitely.
All right. So where can you find us? Well, you can find me over at energeticprinciples.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Energetic Principles, which I've been offering doing the story feature on Instagram lately, where I just, give a couple blurbs to the transits that are going on every day. I'm calling it the Daily Astro Alert. So if you want to be alerted to some astro, come on down to Energetic Principles, and it should be there every day. And if they are still relevant, but past the 24-hour period, they will be listed on my featured stories on my actual page. So Shawna, where can they find you?
Yeah. So I love the Astro Alerts, Mel. It's super fun. It's like a little of the moment. What is happening?
Yes. What's going on now?
Yeah. What's happening? You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under Neo Feminine Astrology. And I don't have anything that I'm currently working on at the moment. When everyone is listening to this, I will have just started the spring semester. So that'll be my focus for now. But
we're working on this. We're working on the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast. I mean, Mel and I definitely we're brainstorming on new things to bring you guys. So if there's something that you would like, or if you have an idea, let us know. But there's definitely stuff happening in the works that we're really excited about. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. Suggestions are more than welcome. We, because as we've said before, this is user driven. So if there's something that you want to see, you have to speak your truth. You got to shout it out.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. All right. So Shawna, any last words for our listeners today?
Yeah, sending lots of love and asking that if you enjoy the podcast, definitely leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or on Facebook. That helps us to reach even more people because it helps us tick up higher in the search engines when people search for astrology podcasts. So do that, and thank you for people who have done that. And then make sure that you are subscribed as well to get future episodes every single weekend, the moment that they are uploaded.
Yes, and they are uploaded on midnight on Sundays, midnight Pacific time. So after that, they are available for download on Podbean and iTunes. And if you're watching on YouTube, you have to wait a little longer until I wake up on Sundays, which is a variable. It's Sunday. So you can find us there. And we definitely appreciate the ratings because like she said, we need those types of things to what they call rank. And we're just trying to rank around here, just get up in there and share what we've been sharing with y'all, with others. So we definitely appreciate your help with that. All right. Well, another fabulous week here with all the communications happening. So I'm looking forward to it. So wishing everyone a fabulous week. And we thank you so much for tuning in. So until next time, may the stars be with you.
Namaste.